Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Freelance episode 22.
Good
Hello,
evening.
Nick. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. This is nearly 2 years. This is insane.
Nearly two, yeah. And although we are not on our usual first Wednesday of the month,
No, no,
we haven't missed this one. We
no.
so uh, basically last week I was flying back from France um, early in the week, and pardon me, sorry about that. Last week I was flying back from France, and it just wouldn't it it wouldn't have worked out for me. So Nick has very kindly moved with me to today, and we've got a few people in the chat. Do say hello if you're there, and if you're listening, and if you can hear us. And we'll waffle on a little bit about what
Yeah.
we've been up to. Yeah. So Nick, you've been very busy, but I'm not entirely sure you've had much time for hobby stuff. I mean, I might be wrong there. Have you had any time for hobby stuff?
I'm trying to think. I have sorted out and boxed up hobby stuff and like done some sort of tidying of hobby stuff as we move
Yeah.
into that. And I've started kind of planning a not a refurb, but like a reorganization, relayout of my garage to better store and access things. Um,
Nice.
I'm kind of getting fed up of having to move one thing in order to get to another thing and this kind of thing. So
Sure.
more shelving. I've noticed that the sort of storage that I've got for my tent right now has solid platforms, and really I want it to have better airflow, so I need to have like slatted platforms and these kinds of things on the shelf. So just kind of
Okay.
running through the thinking and planning about that. Um,
Getting ready for the winter.
yeah. I mean, it's feeling very wintry where we are at the moment. Or, well, late autumn, I suppose.
Yeah.
Pushing
Yeah.
down into the low single figures, everything like that.
Yeah.
How about you? I know you've been working on some leatherwork projects in and around other bits and pieces.
Yeah. So I've managed to finish the uh, creases, the blue leather creases that I showed off last month. Um, so they're ready for delivery. Um, I'm not going to make it to Torm to the markets this November, but my I know some people who are going, so they're going to deliver that there. And I've also had a Warhammer painting commission that I was doing as well, which is hobby adjacent because the guys are wearing armor. They were stormcast, so lots of armor
Mm.
there. And then I've got a craft fair coming up that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have a little leatherwork stall there, so I'm having to make some normie leather stuff, not armor. I'm still not sure whether I'm going to have my armor on display. Like, it's a Christmas fair, so having like a leather
Just put just put an elf hat
breastplate.
on it.
Yeah, right. That's fine. It is
I
red.
mean,
So,
certainly your the tooled brown one you did.
yep.
I think it's worth having that on display on the stool,
Yeah.
just as like a demonstration, right? Like
Yeah. Sure.
even if it's just part of the backdrop, like either like your little stall area, like flanking you to two armors. Make sure you get a
Yeah.
chair with arms so you can kind of sit imperiously between them.
Yeah. 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 I could. The You never know. You never know who's going to be there. Who might be like, yeah, I'll have a full armor. I've just found out. So a friend of mine introduced me to a friend of his, who it turns out lives down my road, works at the school that I used to work at, and um, and does historical European martial arts, 15th
Oh,
century longsword.
outstanding.
And it's like, sometimes you've got to go around the houses to find someone who like you would have so much in common with, and they,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. It's interesting. I was reflecting because there's a war game show next weekend in Farnborough Warfare. And I always remember because it always happens in November. and it used to happen. I can't remember the name of the venue now. It's completely gone out of my head. But anyway, it was a school or a convention center, gym, something like that.
Hmm.
But I always remember like next to the entrance before you got into like the sea of, gamers and what have you, there was just like a little couple of little craft stalls which are like clearly like community groups to do with it, and they
Yeah.
always had like Christmas craft stuff on display there. And I just imagine your armor being like the opposite of that, like it's a Christmas craft fair and you're just there like, and also armor.
Also armor. Why not? Yeah. Well, I've got these mannequins. I can
Hmm.
have an armor set up behind me, like yeah. So why not? Why not? Um, there's some people saying hello. We've got Leonidas Sparta, Rice Brown. We've got YJ. We've got Superboy. Um,
Evening everyone.
hello everyone. There's apparently a few more people, but they haven't said hello yet. I take it from that people can hear us because
I'm assuming so, yes.
we asked people to say hello and they said hello, so that's all good. Um, yeah, so that's projects. I've got some more. I've got some more projects coming up. I've had someone else make a uh, interested in a commission, so I've got some designs to do for them. Basically, my aim is to never make the same piece of armor twice, so everything is going to be a little bit different. Um, so yeah, uh, mostly because I just get bored otherwise.
Hmm.
But also, I think with LARP, you're meant to be a hero, right? You're meant to
Yeah,
be an
yeah.
epic hero, and if you turn up to the battle and someone else is wearing the same armor as you, it's a little bit like one of us has got to change, right?
Oh, it's
Uh,
embarrassing, right? Embarrassing.
yeah, yeah, and I'm sure it would have been the same in real medieval times. Um, if you turn up to battle and someone's wearing exactly the same armor as you, it's just, yeah.
It is one
Obviously,
of
the
the things
Romans
that
didn't.
does entertain me. Like there's like different axes here. Like, right, it's really funny when you see two people, like, maybe not in this, like it doesn't often happen in the same group, but sometimes it does. Um,
Mm,
but like certainly like on the same like area of a battlefield, who have identical harnesses, just like slightly different sizes, or sometimes the same size and slightly different people.
yeah,
Which I find very, very funny. But also, I find it really, really funny how there are so many effigies, particularly of late 15th century English armors, which are suspiciously similar.
yeah, yeah. So there's four that are all basically the same. Well, three
Yeah.
additional ones that are all basically the same as my armor. So yeah, but apparently in the 16th century, the Greenwich workshops. Now I've not seen these. Someone has told me about these, but apparently you could pay extra to make sure that the etching on your armor was never used again. So they would design a new etching that no one else would then be allowed to have. So it was
I mean, that
obviously
makes
it was
a lot
on
of
their
sense.
mind. Yeah,
It's the personalized number plate, isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, it's like not only have I got a Greenwich armor, not only is it etched and gilded, but it's one of a kind. Um, yeah. Soup Boy says, "Do you guys plan on putting this on Spotify?" Um, I mean, to be honest, like it's not really crossed my mind because I'm like, who would listen? But then people do listen to it, and I guess if there's a call for it, if people would benefit from it being on Spotify, I can look into how to do that. Can't be that hard, surely.
Um, not surprisingly, there is a bunch of YouTube tutorials on how to do it. We can look into
Right.
that. I've got quite
Yeah.
like a reasonable amount of time off over Christmas, so
Okay.
maybe I can look into that for us.
Tell you what, guys, if it would help you to listen to this on Spotify, then leave a comment. And if if it seems like people like that idea, then we'll put some time into doing it. But Yeah. And Rice Brown says, definitely display your armor. It is free advertising. I was gonna say like scare some people, but actually often people are just really interested in that sort of thing,
Yeah,
aren't they? And even if like I don't actually sell any armor, it will pull people to the stall.
yeah,
So
and it
yeah.
shows off like there is a level of skill and attention to detail that goes into making those things that doesn't always
Mm,
come off when you're looking at small leatherwork pieces, particularly in a world of pseudo mass produced
yeah.
work that you can just buy online, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You've sold it to me. I'm gonna display some of my armor. Um, yeah. Okay. Right. Research. I've not done any research because it's been the summer holidays. I've been looking after the boys. I have been reading. Actually, I did read some of
You do remember it's
Graham.
November. Summer holidays were a long time ago, Zach. I think you mean it was been half term.
It's been half term, but it felt. Tell you why it felt like the summer holidays is because I've been in the south of France for half term. So
It's all right
yeah,
for some.
it was all right for me.
Yeah.
So it was like a second summer holiday, and my school very kindly gave me 2 weeks off instead of one. So I spent the first week finishing off commissions,
Mhm.
and the second week in the south of France. So I did get a chance to read some of Graham Turner's book on the Wars of the Roses, which was good.
Mhm.
Um, but apart from that, no research. What about yourself?
I did do some like actual research that resulted in like some conclusion, or well, not conclusions.
Mm,
Because we want to have a new flag commissioned for the group, and
yeah,
one of the things that has historically been linked to Middleton is this image of the wild man.
yeah,
It appears in like wall paintings. There's one on a personal seal that belongs to John Middleton, this kind of thing. Um,
gotcha.
and early on in like our process for like coming up with ideas for this flag, we kind of conflated that with the Green Man, which is like a very similar thing. But I was doing some research trying to figure out ideas to give to the artist so that she could do the design for the flag,
Is
because there isn't like
is
a
that high standards? By the
it
way,
it is, yeah, it is high standards, yeah,
high
yeah.
standards. Okay,
um
check out high standards, guys,
yes,
because she does amazing work.
fantastic work, yes. Because the original, it would have been great just to copy the image that was on the wall paintings, but they're so time damaged and worn away that there's not a lot there to work from.
Yeah,
But in doing that, like I got a book on the Green Man, I was doing a bunch of reading, and they are not the same thing, which meant that basically had to backtrack on a bunch of the images I've been sending Daisy and be like, okay, here's a new set of images and this kind of thing. So there was like
yeah,
a learning thing here, and like once you get into it, it's very clear that like the Green Man and the Wild Man are different contexts and for different reasons. But there's
sure,
such an easy thing to like mess up and like
right,
conflate, and often are, I found, in a bunch of texts that aren't like specific to that detail.
yeah. I
Um,
I
yeah,
guess it would be a bit like if someone 500 years from now was like looking at Spider-Man and Venom, and like
yeah,
to us now and everyone in our culture, it's obvious that they're different, but someone looking back might think they're the same, or like, yeah, maybe call Venom Black Widow or something. Um,
uh,
are you doing the link for high standards?
I don't know if it will allow me to paste links in the chat.
Right, I'll tell you what. I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I'll send it to you via the chat in here
okay.
because I have the link. There you go.
I think is Daisy taking commissions at the moment? Does she have live slots? Because
She had live slots a while ago,
okay,
a couple of months ago, to kind of fill the winter season. I do not know what the situation is right now, but the best thing to do is just to get in contact.
yeah, okay. So I have put the link to the Instagram in the description. So guys, you should be able to see that.
Yeah.
Refresh the the thing if you can't. Okay,
And
so
the other thing,
go on.
the other thing that I found super fun was I got to dig into this book about jousting tournaments, which I have not finished yet. But a large chunk of the book is devoted to a lot of the elements from the original, like this back chunk, and it's
Yeah.
the part that I find most fascinating because it's a bunch of like legalese questions. It's like all of those things that it almost feels like reading an insurance
Okay.
a set of insurance precedents. It's
Yeah.
like if you have to pay if a horse gets killed, but two horses collide, who has to pay?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And weird stuff like that, or like you know, would you call it a better night if they fight really aggressively but lose three horses, or one knight who fights really defensively but doesn't lose a horse? Like, who's the better
Yeah.
knight?
Yeah.
And all of these sorts of things. And there's no answers. They're all just questions.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
it's just
it's an
super
interesting
fascinating.
one because in modern jousting we use very like clear points system
Yeah,
that doesn't appear to be around in the 15th century.
there is a table in here which talks about different point systems
Yeah.
in different contexts and different locations.
Okay.
And a
Cool.
London joust, even in the same type of combat, has different like numbers of lances that you're allowed to joust with, and all of these sorts of things. So it's not even that it's like not clear; it's also highly variable.
Yeah. And basically anyone can just set the rules for the joust that they're organizing. There's no
Yes,
standardization at all. Yeah.
but I do love that. So in some of them, they're like, and spear lengths are controlled in this joust. And
Yeah.
just imagine someone like me. Well, I'm not going to that one. They allow spears over 13 feet. I'm not interested.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure those kind of conversations were had all the time. Like, yeah, oh, you can't joust with them. They're crazy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, cool. Events. Have you had an event since?
No, but it's reenactment markets next weekend.
It is. Yep. So
Tour.
are you gonna be there?
Yes. Yeah. So uh, the plan currently is that my fiance and I will be going on the Saturday.
Great.
Armed then at Torm, because there's two markets, Artisans and Reenactors Market and the original Reenactors Market, that happen in reasonably close proximity to each other. They're maybe 20-25 minute drive apart.
Yeah.
So given that it's an hour and 45 minutes for us to get up to that part of the country anyway, we might as well do both.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing people. I'm not collecting a huge amount of things. Question mark. I don't think I am, unless I suddenly get some emails being like, "Hey, this thing's ready."
Yeah.
There's people I need to catch up with. I've got a little list of bits and pieces. I'm going to try really hard not to buy any fabric
Yep.
because there's a huge amount of fabric in this house already.
Yeah.
Might commission a new arming doublet.
Cool. Very cool. Have you seen Alexi, who worked the armorer from Art of Steel,
Yeah.
also does sewing commissions, or
Oh,
or
interesting.
has a company that does sewing commissions, and he's just been recently posting about some arming doublets that they've been making over there.
You should stick
So
Alexi's socials in your descriptions as well.
yeah, I'll have a look. um,
Um,
I'll do
um,
that.
yes. So
He's
I'm
worth following
probably
anyway because he's just finished some leg and arm armor for another one of my friends. Um, I'm so thrilled every time I hear someone who has gone to Art of Steel to support them and to get amazing armor made, because it's just, yeah, it's really nice to see good artists getting
oh yeah. If I was going to
getting
do
work off of
a
your recommendation.
if I was going to do a new harness, it would be up there as a consideration
Mm,
for getting something done. Um, I think I'm probably going to commission Christine Carney at Semster for an arming doublet if I decide
yeah,
to. mostly because she's amazing, but
Yeah,
also it's like not far from where I live to go for a fitting. It's like 30 to 45 minutes depending on traffic to go for a fitting, and that's
yeah,
that's a useful thing.
yeah. And you can't go wrong with the Sims. To that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Uh,
but I don't that I have remembered the other thing. So this is very inside baseball for reenactment things, but uh, Grunominator, which is Dave the Moneyer, he has since retired from making reproduction historic coins.
yeah.
And a friend of mine has been able to buy up all of his existing coin dies in order to keep that production line going, and is trading for the first time at these markets. So I'm
Okay.
keen to go and see what he has on offer. He's also put together some kind of, they're not full bound books, but to call them booklets feels like a little reduction, like reductionary. They like essentially research documents about like 15th century coinage, 15th century economy, 14th century economy, like wages, prices, these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Super excited to get my hands on those and have a read of them, because it's kind of difficult to like, people often ask like, oh, so you'll be at an event and we'll do payroll, and then people will be like, so what's that kind of worth as an equivalent now? And it's very
Mm.
difficult to do so because things have changed so much, and like having a better understanding of their economy can help us answer those questions for public, and also help our own understanding, because you can't do things like just apply inflation, because
No.
if you do that you get that like a loaf of bread should cost £300 now, which it clearly doesn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It, there's so much. I'm thinking of doing a video on that meme that went around, which was medieval peasants have more holiday than you do. I mean, which is
oh
true if you're talking to an American. It is
yeah.
true, um, but the we forget how things like the invention of the washing machine just completely changes how much physical labor we have to do, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and things
And
like that. Just the
bread is
art
another.
of living. Yeah, the art of living was just more involved back then
Yeah,
that you couldn't work 9 to 5 um, for as many days as we do. Um, I can't. I can't see it except for on Alexi's personal page. So
okay.
I, I will try and uh, I'll talk to him about it, and if he's okay with it, then I will share the link to my socials. But yeah, he's got some good stuff. Got some good stuff there. Um, right, are we ready for the defense of Helm's Deep?
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna do my best.
Okay, so it's a little bit
This is
unfair
from the
on
video
because
game, isn't it?
this
Or is this a pre-render
this
from the film?
this is from the film. This is yeah, this is from, I think it's when people are arriving
Ah,
at first, but yeah, okay. So there's been a few YouTubers that I follow are getting into Helm's Deep at the moment, partially because I think the new film coming out is going to feature it heavily. The War of the Rohirrim is going to feature Helm's Deep massively, and it was such an iconic, yeah, just such an iconic part of the Two Towers, right?
it's
Um,
also insane that it was over 20 years ago.
yeah.
It's just mental.
um, yeah. Oh, before we do, Superboy says, "Have either of you considered having a go at Boohurt?" Um, I haven't, and yeah, I don't. Nick, have you?
I have not. I have some friends who do similar fighting things,
Mm,
either with like sort of the, because I think Bohurt and Battle of Nations have like a pretty big overlap. I know
Yeah.
people who do Battle of Nations stuff, and also I know people who do SCA, which again is not the same because it's not steel, it's rattan, but you're still like going hard and that kind of thing. I'll be honest, I used to do some SCA and I stopped doing it because I did not like driving home with my ears ringing.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that side of exploring that part of medieval combat where you're adding one set of safety considerations in order to be able to remove a different set of safety considerations, because in the end you're not actually trying to kill people. That style of exploration of combat doesn't really appeal to me.
Yeah.
uh,
So I started reenacting and jousting because I wanted to experience as close to historical being a historical person as I possibly could. And I think um yeah, the Boha has made a lot of steps forwards, but it's still very ahistorical in a lot of ways. And that's fine because they're not, well, now it's fine because they're not claiming historicalness anymore. But when it first started out,
mm,
a lot of people were very uh, like vocal about it being far more historical than any other thing, and that was yeah. So I think that just kind of put me off being interested in it, which is a shame because I know, in fact, I know lots of people who are decent people who enjoy it. So it's a shame that I've been put off it by people that spoke maybe more than they knew.
yeah, and with a lot of these kind of variations on some level of historical recreation or historical combat exploration or whatever, like, I'm glad that it exists because it gives people who are super excited about that an outlet to do the thing that they're super excited about.
Right. Yeah.
um Much in the
Yeah.
same way, like, I'm happy that LOP exists because it allows people to do that thing that they're super excited about. um but
Yeah.
it doesn't really hit any of the dopamine receptors that I get from doing
Yeah.
other historical recreation or combat recreation.
I think I know the answer to the questions that uh, I would find the answer to with that. So the question that you're basically asking with that is how hard can I hit a guy? And for me, I know the answer is not very hard. Uh,
And
so
then the question is, like, how hard can you get hit and stay up, or
yeah,
how well can you stay on your feet while somebody is trying to remove you from your feet?
yeah. So yeah,
um so
it it's probably not my wheelhouse, but I am happy that really nice, decent guys are enjoying it because when it started out, it was mostly very loud, very brash people telling everyone that they were better than them. So I'm glad that that has changed.
yes.
Uh, cool. Okay. Right. Back to Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep,
And
yes.
Helm's Deep. So there's been a few videos that have been suggested to me recently about how the those defending Helm's Deep were making silly choices and how they shouldn't have defended it the way that they did. Okay, so in part, this is about one me making some points that I think a lot of people have forgotten in those videos, and two is just looking at it, getting a group idea from Nick as well and from the chat as to how what would be the best way to defend Helm's Deep. Um, so a few things. First of all, the description in the two towers is actually not very in depth, at least to start with, and quite wordy as well. So uh,
I'm shocked that a Tolkien description would be wordy.
yeah, so it says at Helm's Gate before the mouth of the deep there was a heel of rock thrust outward by the northern cliff. So that's this bit here. There, upon its spur, stood high walls of ancient stone, and within them a lofty tower. Men said that in the far off days of the glory of Gondor, the sea kings had built here this fastness with the hands of giants. The Hornburg it was called, for a trumpet sounded upon the tower, echoed in the deep behind, as if armies long forgotten were issuing to war from caves beneath the hills. A wall, too, the men of old had made from the Hornburg to the southern cliff, barring the entrance to the gorge. Beneath it, by a wide culvert, the deeping stream passed out. About the feet of the Hornrock it wound, and flowed then in a gully through the midst of a wide green gore, sloping gently down from Helm's Gate to Helm's Dyke. Okay, so that is the description, and I think that the what we see in the film is a pretty good representation of that.
The
Go on.
was it? I may be misremembering, but if I remember right, Helm's Gate is another fortress in the valley, which is a piece of like defensive architecture that is never shown in the film, but is I think really relevant in the book.
Yeah. So
Um,
I think it's layered. I think it's a layered defense.
yeah,
And I think that something that they didn't do in the film that kind of takes away from it and makes you wonder why you've got this wall here is that the deep doesn't go any further behind, much further behind the deeping
yeah,
wall. And I think the point of it was that the gorge went a lot deeper, and they had built the deeping wall across one of the narrowest points, so that huge amounts of Rohan could go inside the deep and defend themselves behind the deeping wall. Uh, yeah. So the fact that you don't see all of those people behind the wall makes you think, well, what was even the point of putting that wall there, right?
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I think there was Helm's Gate went across first of all, and then behind that you've got the keep, and the deeping wall goes across to defend the.
Oh, and the One Ring wiki tells me that there was also an ancient trench and rampart that ran across the entire width of the gorge ahead of these things.
Great, cool. Was that Helm's Gate or was that
That's Helm's
at
Dyke,
Helm's
which is
Dyke,
the
then
first,
Helm's Gate, and then Helm's Deep?
I believe
Yeah,
so, yes.
yeah. Okay, so
And again, like I believe in one of the descriptions in the book, it's unclear whether the deeping wall is actually connected to the Hornburg, like it is in the film.
yeah, so it says it goes across from that.
Right.
So let me just find it again. Uh, um, a wall too the men of old had made from the Hornburg to the southern cliff,
Mm.
barring the entrance to the gorge. So yes, it runs from the Hornburg to the southern cliff, but whether it would be like this, we
Yeah.
don't necessarily know. Um, but there should be a lot more space behind. There should be a whole gorge behind. Whereas in the film, most of the gorge is in front, and these are the only defenses there. Okay, so um,
Are
now,
we are we talking about like the movie defense here rather than the book as well? Is this what we're thinking about?
so I think we probably mostly need to talk about the movie defenses that we have, because the book, I think the book is just actually it's very well defended in the book,
Yeah,
and it is basically as you would do it, right? Um,
yeah. Well, and isn't Aemma there?
yes, yeah,
Yeah,
Aim is there. and Gandalf brings other reinforcements. I think
Yeah.
Erkenbrand and some others, but I might be wrong. Um, now, uh, what I'd want to say first of all is a lot of people that criticize the decisions made in the film seem to forget that we as the audience know a lot more than
Hmm.
the people actually in the film know, right? Um, so, for example, Gandalf and Aragorn are counseling Theoden to ride out um, and meet the Uruk-hai head on. But at this point, none of them know that there's a 10,000 strong army of Uruk-hai. All they have actual evidence of is raiding bands of Dunlendings and Uruk-hai. That's all that they've heard of, because not even Grima is aware that there is an army of 10,000 Uruk-hai. Um, so I think that's a really important thing to remember. Um, I think another thing, both for the book and from the film, is that no one knows that the Uruk-hai have got gunpowder.
And and there's an additional kind of addendum that I is kind of, I don't think is well explained in the films, and potentially I don't even remember if it's well explained in the books, but it's certainly like clarified in some of the surrounding texts that Tolkien wrote. Is that Gandalf could have done that as well, but he's explicitly told not to.
Yeah,
By like, he's not allowed to use his power directly like that,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
and so he kind of has the assumption that Saruman also isn't going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Um,
Gandalf makes fireworks for the hobbits to enjoy, right?
yeah,
But he's told that he's not allowed to affect things directly.
yeah,
And
and
in the background of it, that's because basically in the past, the Maiar and the Valar had done that, but then everyone just kind of waited for them to solve all their problems for them. So then they were like, no, hang on a second.
yeah,
Like we're not the um we're not going to be just hanging around waiting for you guys to mess up so that we can fix it. Like you've
yeah.
got to fix this yourself.
And as a
Um,
side note, I do think it's interesting that Gandalf never really uses his power until after the opponents have done something like drastically to make him go, "Oh, okay, the
yeah,
boundaries are like the gloves are
yeah.
off now. All right."
It's only ever as a last resort, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like he uses it against the Balrog uh,
Yep.
in Moria, so that the others can get away. He uses it against the Witch King when he's rescuing Faramir.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So yeah, exactly. So basically, the decisions that these guys are making are based on things that they what they think, right? They think that there are some raiders who are coming through Eisen, and they are the Fords of Eisen, and um, they are quite strong. They've defeated Theodred, and they're raiding things, but there's uh, um, there's no idea that there's going to be 10,000 Uruk-hai with huge gunpowder
Hmm.
bombs. Like,
Uh, and when they do learn about the size of the army, they're pinned in at that point.
yeah, yeah, and that's the point when Aragorn is saying you must send for help,
Yeah.
and Theoden's like, it's too late now. Um, and something that I think, maybe a lot isn't isn't mentioned is that I think in the films, Aragorn's journey is that of being a very competent soldier and ranger, learning to be a king and
Hmm.
embracing the idea of being a king. And I think Helm's Deep is really important for him in that, and Theoden is actually his teacher in that. Because it feels to me like as soon as Theoden knows that there's 10,000 Uruk-hai on the way, he realizes the mistake that he's made.
Yeah.
And then from then on, he's putting on a brave face to give hope to his soldiers, and in the hope that he can hold out long enough for Gandalf to come back. But he's pretty sure that he won't be able to. And I think that
I
you
think I think it's slightly different. I think that right up until the Deeping Wall is breached, I think he thinks he's going to win. I think the thing that he's resigned himself to is that it's going to come at a huge cost to his people, and
okay, yeah,
that his like the nation of Rohan as an entity might not survive this. But I
yeah,
think he doesn't think that they're ever going to breach the walls.
yes, okay, yeah, I can see that, because yes, again, we know none of them know that there's any gunpowder coming.
No,
Uh,
no.
I maybe it's a bit of both, because obviously their mood changes when the elves arrive, which obviously happens in the film, but not in the books. We know that.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Rice Brown says that Gandalf has the no first strike law. Yeah,
pretty much, yeah, yeah,
always strikes last,
yeah,
but he's got countercharge. So
yeah.
yeah,
There's it's from a completely different fantasy world, but there is a description of a battle where the antagonist army has a lot of like low level casters, and the protagonist army like has a few major casters. The major casters are basically like, well, we have rules about what we can and can't do, so we're going to let the crappy people on the other side push the boundaries, and anytime they do anything, we're just going to do it better, but we're not going to experiment at all.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Just yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a war crime if they did it first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, um, so having said all of that, um, do we have historical precedents for someone retreating, taking all of their people with them, and retreating back inside a fortress while raiders pillage the countryside? I think the answer is yes.
I mean, I think all the people is like a reasonable amount of the population you can hide behind the walls of your fortifications, but you know,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
So
yeah.
I think we see it. We see it in the Iron Age hill forts.
Hmm.
That's that I think is in some ways a lot of the inspiration for Helm's Deep, the Iron Age hill forts, and where they're using the local area and the topography to protect the people that live around
Yeah.
that area. And we also see it in the Anglo-Saxon. Is it the Burgs? The
Yeah.
where they actually placed them um, a set distance away from each other, so that no one would ever have to travel. If Viking raiders came, no one would ever have to travel more than um, I think it was like half a day or a
Yeah.
day's travel in order to be safe. Okay, um, and we know that the uh, the Anglo Saxons were a really big inspiration for the Rohirrim, and in many ways, I think this is kind of probably similar to the. Oh, it's not allegory, right? But it's a reference in some ways to the giant pagan army that invaded,
Yeah. Yeah. The
where the
yeah.
Anglo Saxons thought that this was just going to be another um, raiding trip, and they'd just wait it out inside the burgs, and it would be fine. But it was actually a huge army that they were coming to stay.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think that's what Theoden is thinking, right? Is he has evidence that they're raiding. He has evidence that um, there are small bands roaming across. He doesn't realize that this is actually an invasion.
Mm.
until they're already locked up inside uh, the the inside the deep.
And I also think that Theoden is unprepared for the style of siege combat that the Uruk-hai engage in. Because you see them talking in the movie, right? That he's saying, well, we don't have it. I think it's Gamling says we don't have enough time to lay provisions for a siege.
Yeah,
They're expecting this to be a long, drawn out engagement,
yeah,
and then once Theoden like appreciates the size of the army and potentially starts to have this inkling that this is not going to be a normal engagement, because if you think of a true historic siege, if you're saying we have to hold this massively fortified position for 3 days, you're like, well, I mean, they have a river, right? They have fresh
yeah,
water. They're fine.
yeah,
They'll be hungry, but they're fine, right? This is not falling in 3 days under a traditional siege.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, so I think again, like it's being unprepared for what the Uruk-hai are willing to give up to take the fortress.
Yes, yeah. Um, and this is probably also Tolkien's experience as a soldier playing out,
Hmm.
because the um, at the beginnings of World War I, there was just no inkling what the new technology was going to do
Hmm.
to the tactics and the armies that fought. And whenever something like that happens, that you armies experience horrendous losses, um, which as historians can be easy to gloss over. That each of those losses are actual people,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, we see that in Helm's Deep is that there is this massive technological innovation that the Rohirrim just were not ready for. Um, Now, admittedly, if they had set out the defenses like they are in the book, where there is earthworks followed by a wall, followed by the deeping wall, then the two bombs that the Uruk-hai take with them are not going to be too much of a problem. But
Well, again,
I also,
in the book, the defenders of Helm's Dyke like fill it with bodies before they retreat. So again,
yeah,
you have like this army that like if you have filled a like mile long ditch with the corpses of your foes, you would expect them to leave.
yeah, yeah, and they just don't. They just
Yeah.
keep coming because yeah. Okay, now here let's go to the movie
Hmm.
and the movie's version of Helm's Deep. So, can you see my cursor?
Well, I can. I'm not going to say that the chat can, but
Okay. Uh, so there's a few issues. I think, as much as I love this castle, there are a few issues with it. Okay. First of all, is this
yes.
that if it's there, it should be made of wood, so that the last defender back across it can set fire to it,
Or pull it up,
or a drawbridge. Yeah, drawbridge is another possibility. um,
and
but
the
there's
same on the main entrance.
yeah, there should be, and it's already a causeway. It would actually be easier for them to put a drawbridge here or a wooden bridge that they could burn than it would be for them to build and maintain this uh,
Yeah.
stone arch.
Chat can see your cursor, by the way.
Okay, great, cool. Okay, so yeah, absolutely, we need some kind of wooden defenses instead of um, these stone walkways. Okay, and what you would probably also see would be wooden roofs over
Yeah.
the over all of this. Okay, and that I think would have really benefited not only the defenders but the actors as well, because one of the main things they talk about is how horrendous it was,
Oh yeah, how cold it was.
how cold it was, and how heavy everything was when they were absolutely soaked by all the fake rain. And they were, wearing multiple layers of wool, plus especially the heroes wearing their actual real metal armor.
Yeah.
They were just, yeah, absolutely drenched. So we're gonna get some carpenters in. We're gonna break this here, and we're gonna replace it with something wooden, possibly a drawbridge. We can have a drawbridge there. We're also going to break this here, and we're going to have something that is either destructible or a wooden drawbridge. Um, we're also going to get a second gate in the
Oh,
gatehouse because there's
make
only
a
one
full
gate.
Barbican.
Yeah, so you got one gate here, and then you've got there is a passageway because you see Aragorn and Gimli come out through. Oh, is that a bit better? Can you guys see a bit better? Aragorn and Gimli run into the passageway, and then they run out through here, don't they?
Yeah.
But there's no gate on the back side of the passageway.
Yeah.
So that, at least, if you had that, once the first gate, even if you don't have murder holes and things like that, which you easily could, the second gate would give you time to get
Yeah.
back into the second ring.
YJ is making an interesting point about the fortress not being in the best condition, and I do think that that's a valid thing, that this is supposed to be an ancient fortress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it is, again, it's a little bit difficult to think about when this fortress is placed in kind of the history of castle technology. But one thing that really strikes me is that the walls are just so thin.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, if we're talking about Dark Age technology, or early medieval technology, right? This is very, very
True.
good. Yeah, the crenellations should be taller, and they could be wider, but yeah, I don't know how long before the Lord of the Rings it was actually built. It was built by the Numenorians, wasn't it?
Yeah, so like 1,000, what, like 3,000 years, 4,000 years, something like that.
Yeah, so yeah, I could see that. I
I'm
could see
sure
them
the
being
internet will
wider.
tell me.
I could see them being wider. And I mean, the deeping wall itself is a
Yeah, it
solid
was built in
wall.
the Second Age, so
Okay. Yeah, so at least 2,000 years before the Lord of the Rings.
yeah,
Probably three. Um, yeah, so that second gate is just really going to help, if someone were able to breach the main gate, then that second one will really help out there. But there just aren't these areas. There aren't these fallback points,
Hmm.
right? This stairway that allows people to get back up into the Hornburg
Should be wooden.
should be wooden, so that you can get rid of it once the last person is in.
Um, I also want to we know that we take into account that they don't know about gunpowder,
Yeah.
but that culvert is still a massive weakness
Yep. Absolutely.
that you
Yeah.
absolutely should have just clogged up with rocks
Yeah.
and dealt with the fact that you're going to get wet feet.
Yeah.
And
Just
that wouldn't help against the gunpowder, given the situation that they faced. That is true.
although
But
if they'd have clogged it up from this side, the front side, then they wouldn't have been able to bury the gunpowder as far under the deeping wall as they did.
no, that is true. I still think that you probably breached the wall with those.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
those,
Probably.
but that would be a sensible thing to do when defending and knowing that you have this large weak point.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think you're bang on there. Just and not even having a couple of elven archers standing behind it to shoot anyone who
Oh
came
shit,
near.
just out through the gaps. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, right? That could have been all you needed, right? Just have
Just
Legolas there.
stick loads of pikes through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
um,
so yeah. So the deeping wall itself, um, as we
it
said,
needs more
the
strong
gorge
points.
should be further behind. Um, Apparently, John Ho, uh, originally in the original design, it was going that way. It was curved the other way,
Mm.
and John Ho insisted that if they were going to do this like this, then it should be curved convex from the point of view of no concave from the point of view of the Urukai, because that then allows people to shoot it um, in from multiple sides.
And I
Um,
suppose in a world where you don't care about gunpowder, you don't care about curving so that things can slope off it.
exactly. Yeah. Um, I might be tempted to move it further back to about here, so that then people from up on the Hornberg can actually shoot down um, into this killing field as well. As it stands, these people here have got really poor lines of sight
Yes.
to anyone attacking, unless they're already behind the deeping wall.
And part of me wonders is would there, you know, if this has been around for 3,000 years, could you not have mined out some of the extra cliff face to
Hmm.
create additional vantage points to assault an enemy army, like complete that kind of three-sided
Yeah,
envelopment of bow
yeah,
fire from or bow shot from either side.
yeah. So that basically the deeping wall is protecting um, the gorge behind, and the Hornberg is actually there to protect the deeping wall.
Yeah.
In the film, I don't think that's particularly clear that that's the aim. I think the Uruk-hai are trying to get in here to kill Theoden, and I don't think that is the intention uh, of the siege or of Helm's Deep itself. I think Helm's Deep's intention, it's not a castle that's there to defend the nobles. It's more of an Anglo-Saxon burg, which is there to defend the people.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we
I
really
think
just go on.
I think it is a very difficult thing because narratively it makes sense. I mean, so talking about a Tolkien narrative, it makes sense that Helm's Deep would never fall.
Yeah,
Like from a broader narrative perspective, like Helm's Deep absolutely should have fallen, and everything should have gone really badly wrong here
yeah,
because, like, nobody dies.
quite a few people die, like all
But
of
like
the elves.
nobody of consequence dies,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
right? And like that's why I think Boromir's death is so important in Fellowship of the Ring. Like that makes narrative sense and also adds to the stakes of everything that's going on. This like really important main character
yeah,
snuffs it, and then that just doesn't happen. And even in the book, like a character that you feel is just introduced to take that bullet, as it were, in gambling, he's just like, no, I'm fine.
yeah,
And then it comes good when Theoden dies at Pelennor Fields,
yeah,
but it just kind of leaves this hollow thing where, like, yes, a bunch of extras died, but you don't ever feel like there was a real cost in the film. And I think that's one of the reasons why they had to introduce the elves and Haldir, was because they
yeah,
felt the need to actually kill a character that people might care about a little bit, because it makes this actually feel like a because they act like it's a big loss when actually you look at it and
Yeah,
go, well, you saw off the Uruk-hai, like you defeated Saruman's army, you've
yeah,
taken back Orthanc, like this is a win. Like, yeah, a bunch of people died, but we don't care about them. They're extras.
yeah, yeah,
You know, you're a king, Theoden. Get over it.
yeah, yeah. I think you're probably right. I think it was important to have a big loss, and having the elves turn up and then all die to a man gave them um, that loss, right?
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, Tolkien um, Tolkien answered everyone's questions in the books, using the appendices to explain about how the elves were actually busy fighting in
Yeah.
Lothlorien,
Yeah.
and that many of them did die and things like that. But without them arriving at Helm's Deep, the films you just like, well, what are the elves doing? um,
Being elvish,
and
leaving.
you can't easily just do a quick like cut back to Lothlorien where there are some elves fighting orcs, because that just that in
Yes.
films we don't do that. That it needs to make narrative sense,
Yes. Yes.
to
And
do a cutback.
I, I'm just realizing as well, there is one thing that we really should talk about with the defense
Hmm.
of Helm's Deep, which I think would have made a massive difference, which is the
Okay.
cloning technology that Theoden kept hidden that allowed him to have two Legolasses when he rode out. They should have just used repeatedly. So you had like 3,000 Legolasses defending.
Yeah, yeah, that would have helped. Maybe maybe it was just maybe it was just too. It took too long to clone Legolas.
Sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. Or
Um,
maybe it was because we decided we didn't want Arwen there anymore. Yeah.
yeah. Do you know what, actually? Maybe that explains why Legolas's hair is always perfect.
Oh, well, there's multiple of him.
There's two of him, and so he can do his own hair
While the other
without a
one,
mirror. So,
or is it just that Legolas, every time he looks in a mirror, the mirror redoes his hair for him? So, like, every
yeah,
time he looks at his reflection, his hair's redone. Um,
could be.
I mean, he's also just an elf, which in Tolkien's language means better than you.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, it's, to be honest, with what they had, I don't think that the Defenders of Helm's Deep in the films did particularly poorly with what they had. Yes, they should have filled up the culvert, but there are some really questionable design choices of the um, of the deep itself for the film
yes.
that they are working against, which is basically as soon as this gate falls, there is no the next line of defense is back here. That is the next gate that they can hold, right?
Yeah.
Um, now, I think that was probably because they had people like John Howe on the art team. I don't think um, that is on accident. I think that is done intentionally.
Yeah, it's a Hollywood decision, right? Or, sorry, a filmmaking decision.
Yeah, because there would be nothing as boring to watch
As
as
a
a
proper scene.
well defended siege,
Yeah.
because it would be a bunch of people standing on walls, dropping rocks on other people for days.
Yeah.
Like,
Weeks even.
if they had the drawbridge here, if they had the wooden mantlets all around the walls, and if they'd filled up the culvert, the Uruk-hai would not be able to touch them for days. They would start having to do undermining and things like that. Like, yeah, there might be a few ladder assaults, but people are calling for them to have a ditch in front and a moat and things, and like to stop the ladders. If you had defended Helm's Deep properly, it would have been a rubbish film.
That is true, yes. And YJ asked about the continuity error. So certainly in the extended edition, I don't remember if it made it into the theatrical release, but when Theoden and Aragorn and the remaining Rohirrim ride out, there are two Legolasses in the column of archers. And that was because at some point they were considering having Arwen be here, and she also has a white horse like Legolas does. And so you just have this second white horse in the column, and they just pasted Legolas over the top of Arwen.
And they filmed a lot, which included her.
Yeah.
The bit where they're pulling the rope up that has Aragorn and Gimli on it. She was
Yeah.
apparently pulling on the rope behind Legolas, and they just cropped it so that
Yeah.
she wasn't in shot. So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. Right, so we have defended Helm's Deep not only from the Uruk-hai but also from the critics, and we've rambled a little bit. Maybe I need to do a short form video on this to summarize some of what we've said, because I think
I
we've got
think
some
you
good
should
ideas.
re-art it, like annotate, like as a YouTube short, annotate all of the bits.
Yeah.
And Eric Stewart makes a good point about a similar case in the Song of Ice and Fire books about surrender and like 3 books to get through over the walls. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're
and it's realistic.
Sieges are a really difficult thing narratively. Yeah. They're a good way to like have a time skip though, I guess. Like if you're there being like, oh, I need like a 2-year time skip. Like, let's just have them under siege for a couple of years in a really well defended place, and it's fine.
Yeah.
In fact,
I mean,
that is
there are
what
things
he does in one of his books. He's like, they laid siege for 8 years and then they wandered off. Oh, look, now somebody's old enough to do the thing they need to do.
Yeah, nice. I quite like the so I've been looking at Roman forts. We went and visited Vindolanda in the summer holidays, and apparently the Roman army was so confident of their fieldwork that basically they didn't engage in sieges as the defender. If an enemy was coming towards them, they would just march out and face them in open battle, even if they were outnumbered, generally. And the forts were really there to help protect against surprise attacks and things.
I think one of my favorite historical sieges has to be Alesia, where you have like the double ring of like a besieging force getting besieged. I love it.
Oh yes, yeah. Where
Caesar.
Yeah, Caesar was besieging Alesia, and with the Vercingetorix. Was Vercingetorix inside the walls, or was he the relief force? Anyway,
you're gonna make me go type things into Google again.
It's hard to remember what is actual history and what is from Asterix and Obelix.
I was gonna say,
but yeah. While you're doing that,
Vercingetorix was inside.
Okay, cool.
You're going to do your
I'm just going to put up the old thanks, because my patrons have been supporting me for a really long time, and one of the things that always makes me feel really humble and really really appreciated is when I go to the relationship manager on Patreon and look at how long people have been supporting me and what that adds up to, because it's really incredible, and I definitely wouldn't still be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you so much. Thank you, chat, as well, for coming. It's just like, I don't know about you, Nick. When we ask people to say hello, and then there's like the same names, same faces popping up, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like
And
it.
yeah, it's really nice that you guys come and hang out with us. It's like, I think I've said this before. It seems weird that in this world, um, numbers are ridiculously big, and you'd think that in order to make a decent live stream, you need 1,000 people all in the chat. But this is nice. This is like, I think there was around 10 of us at one point, hanging out talking about history. So
Yeah,
history and Lord of the Rings. So what more would you want on
we've
a Tuesday?
we've done a lot of kind of Lord of the Ringsy fantasy literature, movies, sort of stuff
Mm.
over the last few months, which has been really enjoyable. And you know, I'm keen to see what we can pull together next year. Like I'm excited to hear more about your starting reenactment again project.
Mm.
See how that
Yeah,
goes. Um,
yeah. So my next video in that is going to be looking at costume. So the first thing that reenactors should do is get their soft kit sorted. Very often, not the first thing that they do. So I'm going to be looking at soft kit and really focusing on the Bayer tapestry there. Um, and then my patrons are going to be able to vote on uh, which fabrics to use and so on. So yeah, that's the aim with that one. That's the next one coming up. Um, I I don't think I need to buy any more fabric, to be honest. I think I've got everything I could.
Fabric is the one thing that I definitely do not need right now. I do have a list of like winter projects and these sorts of things. You know, maybe in January we can do a rebase redo of the year's planning and
Oh
see
yeah,
how
yeah,
we get through it again.
yeah. I think we should. Yeah, be good. Right, lovely. Well, thank you everyone for coming to join us. It's been
Yeah,
great. I've enjoyed it. Always love talking about the Lord of the Rings, and especially Rohan, which is my favorite faction in Lord of the Rings. Are you going to be watching the War of the Rohirrim um,
I will
Nick?
probably
Or
do like it. I mean, it depends on time and like life and things. Like I'm not intentionally avoiding it like I have with certain other media. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I've I think I'll probably go and see it. Let us know in the comments whether you're going to go and see it,
mm.
um, and maybe we could do a retrospective on that at some point as well, because
Well, if
I'm
we're going to
sure
talk
there'll
about it
be
on here, I'll go see it.
yeah. Cool. All right.
I only knew about it because Games Workshop did an article about it when they were talking about
Yeah.
releasing a game for it. The media, the promo media for it has not been good.
No. It's but then I don't know how they would find me, right? Because I don't I don't watch TV. Like I don't I have no idea how many adverts have been coming out, and I don't get adverts on YouTube because I have premium. So yeah. Anyway, right. Thank you guys. Thanks for turning up. Thanks for chatting, and we will see you next month.